similar to that of the sun. After wrapping up the Paris leg of his three-day visit to France, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reached the French port city of Marseille. At the airport, the Indian leader was accorded a guard of honor. President Macron was present on the occasion. Prime Minister Modi is in Marseille to inaugurate a new Consulate General of India along with President Macron. The two leaders have a series of engagements planned for the day, including a visit to the Mazar War Cemetery to honor the sacrifice of Indian soldiers who lost their lives fighting in the First and Second World Wars. In a social media post on X, Prime Minister Modi paid homage to freedom fighter V.D. Savarkar, who attempted a courageous escape at the French port city of Marseille. He spoke about how Marseille holds a special significance in India's quest for freedom. He thanked the people of Marseille and the French activists of the time who demanded that Savarkar not be handed over to the British. He also spoke about the bravery of Veer Savarkar that continues to inspire generations. Earlier, upon his arrival at his hotel in Marseille, Prime Minister Modi received a rousing welcome from the Indian diaspora. The Indian diaspora in Marseille expressed happiness after meeting with Prime Minister Modi. They were also happy that an Indian consulate would be inaugurated in the city.
We are very happy and thank you Modi ji for opening this and giving us a New Year gift.
It was a very unrealistic moment for us. We didn't feel like we are far from home because we are amongst Indians and it feels very nice of being here.
Yeah, even for me as a student, like, it was a precious moment for us to meet Narendra Modi ji, like from nearby. Even like we just shake hands with them, and it was good.
In an international environment, having him here, having all these people here has only been great.
I would say that it was such a great honor for us to be able to meet him up close today here, and I'm really hoping that the opening of the new consulate here will actually help us a lot in exchanging cultures and celebrating more festivals together and meeting fellow Indians often so that we don't feel away from home.
I'm very happy to see our master trio, our PM, NSA and External Affairs Minister. I'm really happy for seeing them in person and I'm feeling a homely environment here.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving us this wonderful opportunity to meet you here.
Now, Prime Minister Modi's visit to France has been marked by extraordinary gestures of friendship from French President Emmanuel Macron. A unique aspect of the Modi visit to France has been the time and respect given by President Macron to him. On the first day, Macron spent time with Modi at the dinner hosted by him. The camaraderie continued into the next day at the AI Action Summit, where India and France co-hosted the summit. Demonstrating their close ties, they hosted the India-France CEOs Forum together, reflecting their shared vision for economic collaboration. In an extraordinary gesture of friendship, they travelled together in a joint motorcade and then in the same plane to Marseille. Macron hosted Modi for a working dinner in Marseille immediately upon landing. Today, this special bond will be further highlighted as President Macron hosts Prime Minister Modi to inaugurate the Indian consulate in Marseille. They will also visit the ITER project and the Marseille port together, underscoring the depth of this unique partnership. Such proximity and time being given by Macron for any world leader is rare and rarely has any precedent. Now, Prime Minister Modi's visit focuses on strengthening India's ties with France. DD India's Jessica Taneja reports from the port city of Marseille.
This is Prime Minister Modi's 6th official visit to France and is aimed at further strengthening the India-France strategic partnership. A key highlight of the visit will be the inauguration of a new Indian consulate in Marseille. The decision to open the consulate was announced during Prime Minister's visit to France in 2023. The second diplomatic mission in the French port city will enhance consular access for the Indian diaspora, while also supporting Indian startups and SMEs in navigating regulations, finding local partners, and exploring market opportunities. During his visit, Prime Minister will also pay homage to the Indian soldiers at the Mazak cemetery, honouring their sacrifices. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will pay tribute to the Indian soldiers who laid down their lives during the First World War and were commemorated here at the Mazak cemetery. Marseille served as the base of the Indian soldiers during the 1914 to 1918 war. Throughout the war, they either worked in the port or passed through it. Later in the day, he is scheduled to visit the site of the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, which is a crucial international project in the field of nuclear energy.
A visit that both leaders will undertake together to a place called Kadash, is the site of the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, which is a project, a high science project in which India is a partner along with a few other countries.
Bilateral talks are also scheduled as part of the visit, with discussions expected to focus on key areas of collaboration. While defence, security, civil nuclear cooperation and space remain the principal pillars of India-France strategic partnership, the relationship has expanded in recent years. New areas of cooperation include maritime security, digitalization, cybersecurity, advanced computing, counter-terrorism, climate change and sustainable development. Jessica Taneja for DD India in Marseille, France.
And Jessica Taneja now joins us from Marseille for more. Jessica, talk to us about the Prime Minister's engagements in the city.
Right, the Prime Minister will visit the Mazak cemetery along with the French President Emmanuel Macron. And post that he's going to be here at the new Indian consulate here in Marseille, where we are. Ramesh, at this point, at this inauguration should take place in just a short while from now. An important day for the Prime Minister when it comes to his visit to the port city of Marseille. Multiple levels of engagements, of course, starting with the Mazak cemetery, honouring those soldiers who had laid down their lives during the First World War, which is from the period of 1914 to 1918, as I was mentioning earlier. And the port of Marseille was where the Indian troops were stationed and also passing through the port during that time. And apart from the visit to the Mazak cemetery, as I said, after he finishes his engagement here, where he inaugurates the new consulate in Marseille, then he will be moving towards ITER, which is the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor site, which is about 100 kilometers from here, from the port city of Marseille, but very crucial component of the Prime Minister's visit, because a lot of Indian engineers have contributed to this significant scientific contribution ever since India joined ITER in 2006. Until now, we have various engineers along with other workers who contributed to it. The Prime Minister is going to engage and meet with them as well, along with the Director General of ITER. So an important day for the Prime Minister as well. After that, of course, he leaves for Washington DC for his engagements in America.
But Jessica, stay on. We'll come back to you momentarily. We'll fix that audio link with you as well in just a bit. Right, time to welcome our special guest joining this special broadcast, Ambassador Javed Ashraf, a former Indian ambassador to France and High Commissioner of Singapore. Joining me is Ambassador Anil Vadva, a former Indian ambassador to Italy, Thailand, Oman and Poland. And also with us is Professor Rajan Kumar from the Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. Gentlemen, welcome to this special broadcast. Ambassador Ashraf, if I can start with you, what are some of the salient features of the India-France relationship that sets us apart from the rest? I ask you this because, and correct me if I'm wrong, India's first strategic partnership with any country was with France. Also, France was perhaps the only country that did not impose sanctions on India after the 1998 nuclear tests.
Well, good afternoon and thank you for having me on the show. Special moment because I was in Paris or in France until 31st December. So it's very good to see that Prime Minister is back there. He was there, of course, in 2022 and 2023, and President Macron was here in 24. Now, I think the salience of this partnership is going to increase in the coming years because we all know the history of this relationship. And the reason I say this is because it's a relationship that is built on a shared sense of strategic autonomy, a deep belief in multipolarity underpinned by the discipline of multilateralism. France and India see each other as premier partners in the Indo-Pacific. We have a deep sense of trust of an unparalleled nature when it comes to defense and security. And it isn't just about talking about defense equipment, industrial production, but it is also about the operational cooperation, including in new domains such as space security, military space cooperation, and cyber, in underwater domain, and a whole lot of other operational areas of cooperation which are very sensitive in nature and can only take place between two countries that have a deep sense of trust and a shared interest. But increasingly, we're looking also at cooperation in civil nuclear space, and with the changes that are expected in our laws, we'll see that grow. Economic partnership, incidentally, is often sometimes not, doesn't get the level of spotlight that it should. Between 2015 and 2022, the cumulative increase in French foreign direct investment in India was 373%. The next highest in Indo-Pacific from France was Taiwan, which was 96%. In the area of technology, as you know, that France is the first country we started working with in the area of digital public infrastructure, including, as you know, we launched of the UPI last year in France. In the area of culture, for example, our new National Museum, we are going to be partnering with France, which of course is the world's best place as far as museums are concerned. Student exchanges are growing. But when you look at the emerging geopolitical order, which is you see the emergence of a potential bipolar competition between the United States and France. You see the unraveling of the international order which the US-led Western system had created. You see the fragmentation taking place between the North and the South. India and France are two countries with a deep sense of strategic autonomy and convergent view, which can act as a bridge in trying to create a more cohesive and inclusive future for the world and create a more multipolar and stable order. Now, you saw that during the AI Action Summit, where, as you had seen earlier in the International Solar Alliance, where President Macron had invited the Prime Minister to be the co-chair. And I must tell you that it's only after the Prime Minister accepted the invitation to co-chair the AI Action Summit that the invitations went out to the others. So that was the importance President Macron attached to it. And the reason for this is the great sense of convergence, not just on the digital domain, but also on how, in the 21st century, as Prime Minister say, this is the dawn of the AI age, we will work to make sure that the AI-driven future mirrors the ideals and the values that we share, that it makes for a more inclusive, democratic, free and open world, and that power is not concentrated simply in the hands of a few companies or a few countries, but that the benefits flow to the global south. So I think as you see the emergence of the geopolitical order, you will see the salience of this partnership between India and France, and through France with Europe, continue to grow. Besides the fact that, you know, in every domain of our national endeavor and in every domain of our international initiatives, France has been a trusted, consistent, reliable partner that has stood with us through thick and thin, as you yourself mentioned. And I think in the tumult of the international system that we see, we need the stability and the assurance of partnerships such as that with France. Equally, for France, India is an extremely important partner. And despite all its preoccupations with the war in Europe, with the challenges in Africa, with the challenges of the Euro-Atlantic relationship, you see the unremitting focus on partnership with India,
Right.
those geographic sense. And that is because when France sees its future and its own conception, particularly President Macron, he sees India as a very central figure in both Indo-Pacific, but in the global order that he envisions for France and for Europe.
Indeed. Thank you for that comprehensive overview, Ambassador Ashraf. I'll request all our guests to stay on. I'll go back one more time to my colleague who is standing by in Marseille as we speak. Jessica, if you can hear us. We were discussing about the PM's engagements through the day. Talk to us a bit now, if you will, about Marseille, the city where you're in right now, its history and location, and also the Indian diaspora there. I can see some of them behind you already.
That's correct, Ramesh, and apologies to our viewers, we couldn't connect earlier because of the ambience here. We have lots of people from Marseille who have arrived at the new consulate and are waiting for the Prime Minister along with the French President to inaugurate this consulate. Of course, after Paris, this is a strategically important a place for the Indian consulate to have been opened in the recent past. Remember, this was an announcement made by the Prime Minister during his last visit in 2023, and now it has come to fruition. And of course, this is going to ease a lot of process, and especially when it comes to the consular access for a lot of the diaspora here. Approximately 10,000 people, as we're given to understand, including the businesses as well. And the city, in fact, has one of the largest ports of France, where you see huge shipments of cargoes, especially oil, as well as other shipments that we've seen in the past that this port of Marseille does enable. So, of course, a strategic point as well for the India-Middle East economic corridor. And apart from that, the old port city of Marseille offers much more than its just picturesque and its historical venues such as Notre-Dame-la-Garde, as well as the beautiful basilics that you see around the city. So, of course, a very important and strategically, if I may say so, for the Indian diaspora, along with the Indian businessmen who want to further engage and enhance trade ties with France, especially given the fact that this is one of the largest ports and would enable the facilitation of trade. And not to forget, when IMEC corridor was announced back in 2003 during India's G20 presidency, it was crucial to understand that it's only France that had appointed a special envoy to now see how progress is made on the IMEC corridor. That is the strength of the relationship of India and France, going back, of course, to '98 when Jacques Chirac was in New Delhi during the Republic Day celebrations, and to now we've seen how the cooperation is expanded just beyond space, defense. And now we see the trade ties moving forward, especially with a crucial project like IMEC, where France is a crucial partner, and the port city of Marseille is going to play a very important role, especially when it comes to not just undersea cables, but also the transportation of various cargo, and an important link, apart from, of course, Greece and Italy, which are considered an essential component of the IMEC corridor. The port of Marseille is going to play another important strategic vantage point when it comes to India-France trade ties. And according to the French envoy who's been appointed for IMEC, he seems to suggest that if this continues in the path of progress that it does, both India and the European Union could see an approximate increase of 6% of trade by 2032. So that is the kind of importance the port city of Marseille boasts at this point, Ramesh.
Indeed, as Jessica is reporting there from Marseille, we are standing by for the inauguration of the Indian consulate in the port city of Marseille in just a short while from now. Jessica, thank you for now. We'll come back to you for more later on this special broadcast. Well, let me go back to my guests with us on this broadcast, Ambassador Ashraf, Ambassador Wadhwa and Professor Kumar. Ambassador Wadhwa, to you now, the inauguration or the expected inauguration of the consulate in Marseille, a welcome addition, you think, one that will boost people-to-people ties as well?
Thank you, Ramesh, for having me. And I think as Ambassador Javed Ashraf has nicely summed up the relationship with France, it's important to note that this was a decision which India and France have taken earlier to open this consulate. And obviously it has its own significance, most importantly economic and the people-to-people dimension. So Marseille in the future supposed to be an important hub for transportation once we have a fully operationalized IMEC corridor. And of course, there are a number of hurdles to cross before that happens. But of course, we know that the ports in Greece and Italy and in France will play a very important role in that respect. And of course, there are a number of people who gathered there. In your own show, you highlighted in their interviews, they're very excited about the fact that they can now look forward to an Indian mission, which would allow them to come together and to enhance the people-to-people ties, at the same time to celebrate what India is about altogether, and feel the support that India is there constantly for them. In terms of visa and consulate issues, of course, there's always a given that whenever a new consulate opens, it's always very convenient for the people who live in that area. And of course, a lot of research would have gone into the reasons why we opened a consulate in Marseille. Some of those, as I enumerated, are quite clear. But going forward, I think it will become an important milestone between this relationship between India and France, which is growing by leaps and bounds.
Absolutely.
Ramesh, can I step in on this?
Please, yes, please. Yes, please.
All of this that has been said. First, I wanted to let you know that, for a long time, we believed that everything in France happened in Paris. So it's an anomaly that in a country that is 500,000 square kilometers and 40% larger than Germany, we have 3 consulates in Germany. We've even got consulates in Milan and Italy, but we had no consulate in mainland France. Mm-hmm. And we have a consulate in Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean region. But so that was one important reason. It's 900 kilometers from Paris, Marseille. But it's equally important to recognize that it isn't just about being a potential terminal point for IMEC. It is also going to be one of the major submarine cable landing points in the world. Even today, 20% of the data center capacity in Marseille is accounted for by Indian data. So it's a very important and a sensitive place for us. It's going to be the main hydrogen terminal, by a piped hydrogen terminal in Europe. And it's got a fantastic technology hub. It's got major defense companies right next to the airport. You have the Airbus helicopters, which will soon start making civil helicopters in India. Toulouse is very close, which is one of the major aerospace centers of the world. Nice is again, and Lyon, very critical logistics and tourism gateways. So if you see the importance of Marseille, it is both going to eventually become a center which will connect the Euro-Atlantic zone with the Indo-Pacific zone. Already, the Mediterranean Sea is a fairly contested ocean. You already see the presence of Chinese and Russian ships have always been there. And so it's a geopolitical, geostrategic, and geoeconomic importance of Marseille is going to continue to grow. And it was an anomaly that we didn't have a consulate anywhere else in France. Marseille was the second largest city, was the obvious choice. We are also expecting that there would be investments in the logistics and port sector in Marseille from India. That would be a great thing that were to happen. But I'd also like to add something else that is very important to Prime Minister. And it was in the course of a conversation that he asked about our presence. And when I told him that, we don't have a consulate, he said we should have one and you look for the right city to do it. But also I should point out, while we're talking about the outreach to the people and diaspora, that we have 2 French territories island territories in the Caribbean Sea, Guadeloupe and Martinique. We have about a total of 70,000 people of Indian origin who are descendants of workers who went there in 1854. And for a long time, they were lost to us. But today, in the course, again in July 2023, Prime Minister announced that the Indian diaspora will get the OCI and that we'll take other measures. And what was their 20-year expectations and aspirations were fulfilled in 2024, and that we've begun issuing OCIs to people of Indian origin in Guadeloupe and Martinique, which is again a Prime Minister's initiative, as also that we are in the process of just appointing an honorary consul in Guadeloupe. So when we speak of our Prime Minister's initiatives and his interest in engaging with and providing support to the Indian diaspora, in addition to what has happened in Marseille, I thought it was important to mention that at the same time in the distant Caribbean islands of Guadeloupe and Martinique, where the Indian diaspora felt that they were completely forgotten by the country of their origin, in the course of this last year, thanks to Prime Minister's initiative, we've launched the OCIs, as also in the process of appointing an honorary consul to support them. So Marseille is strategically important. Also, as I said, part of the great diaspora outreach that Prime Minister has been initiating since coming to office.
Indeed, as you say, Ambassador Ashraf, it took a long time coming, but finally we are here. We are just moments away from the inauguration of that Indian consulate in Marseille, France. Thank you for that
context. It's a very
context.
nice building, I must tell you.
Indeed. Right, Professor Kumar, if I can come to you now, while we are, delving into the specifics of the relationship, be defense, space, civil, nuclear, and so on, I want you to take a step back and look at the engagements over the last couple of days in France in relation to the PM's ongoing visit. What, according to you, are some of the key takeaways from the visit so far, be it the AI Action Summit or the other bilaterals that he held on the margins of that summit as well?
Thank you for having me here. I think
Welcome.
that is very interesting in the sense that this is the first time that you're saying that some kind of regulation at the global governance level related to AI is coming into place. This AI issue is very contested, and one of the biggest problem, as Prime Minister said, is the kind of misuse of the technology. So we have AI, which is the future of technology, and most of the countries are trying to develop their own this artificial intelligence technology. But there are two countries and a few companies which are leaders. One is United States, and the second one is certainly China. But again, European countries, India, and a lot of other countries are also trying to develop their own project. So one of the biggest challenges related to artificial intelligence was how to create some kind of regulatory mechanism. Since this is a new technology with immense potential, but at the same time also, it can be misused. So there is a need for there is a kind of European countries, India, and a lot of other countries. They were feeling some kind of a need to develop a regulatory mechanism, because the governance issues, there were meetings, but nothing concrete could come out of the previous meeting that we had in UK earlier, and South Korea also. But this governance issue was addressed very forcefully in this present meeting, and that is one of the biggest achievements. Although there were some disagreements, as you know, that United States didn't sign on this saying J.D. Vance's statement was very harsh, saying that the European countries are very excessive in terms of regulating artificial intelligence. Essentially, US is not trying to be regulated by any other global governance mechanism. And that's one of the fundamental problems with the US today, so that it is withdrawing from most of the multilateral institutions. In that context, it becomes extremely important for a country like India and also European countries to come forward with certain regulations through which some of the countries can be controlled or contained. China, one good thing out of this summit, Artificial Intelligence Summit, is that China agreed and China signed the joint declaration. United States, followed by UK, they refused to sign because the fear is that first, they do not want to share the technology, they do not want to democratize the technology, do not want to share with other countries. And United States also fears that some of the data kind of regulations which are there in European countries, they might, European countries try to create some kind of regulation against US companies. That's a very unfortunate part, but that's the reality that we're living in. It's a very tumultuous world, as Ambassador Ashraf pointed out earlier. So we are living in a world which is getting fragmented. US is trying to act alone on several issues, shrinking and withdrawing from most of the multilateral institutions. But in that context, the cooperation between India and France becomes extremely important, because both the countries talk of some kind of strategic autonomy. They want to have a good cooperation with the United States, but at the same time, they do not want to behave like a junior partner. They want to have sovereignty and equal status when it comes to dealing with the United States. That's exactly the case with France also. And both of them believe in some kind of some multipolar world. where they do not want US and China to dominate the international affairs. So in that context, this visit is extremely important, and we have a very trusted and deep-seated relationship with France, and it's very comprehensive. There's a convergence of values where these two democracies, they share a lot of values on the issue of democracy, governance, etc. There is also institutional partnership at various levels, in which defense and security, in my view, is the most important, followed by this economic partnership, followed by now we are talking of the nuclear cooperation,
right,
which has been taking place, but again, there is some kind of acceleration in that space also, and space technology and cultural cooperation, etc., that we have been talking about. So it's very comprehensive partnership, and these are the major takeaways from my perspective.
Right, now that our viewers have a fair idea of the lay of the land, as it were, in India-France ties, we'll also delve deeper into the importance of strategic autonomy to both India and France in foreign and security policies. We'll also talk about the much acclaimed Modi-Macron rapport as well. But before that, one of the key dimensions or components of the Prime Minister's ongoing visit to Marseille would be his visit to the nuclear fusion project site in Kadash. Now, the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, or ITER, is a large-scale international collaboration. ITER is a collaborative project aimed at demonstrating the feasibility of nuclear fusion as a large-scale and carbon-free energy source. It's a multinational nuclear fusion project aiming at simulating the sun's fusion processes on the Earth in order to generate energy. The project involves several countries, including India, the European Union, China, Japan, South Korea, Russia, the US, with each contributing expertise and components to the project. The ITER facility is being built in Kadash, southern France. Now, India is an active participant in the fusion technology project. It has significant energy requirements of its own to fulfill its development goals, and the recent annual budget placed a significant emphasis on energy production. Now, India became a full partner in the ITER project way back in 2005, and the ITER agreement was signed later in 2006. The Institute for Plasma Research oversees India's contributions to this project. The institute comes under India's Department of Atomic Energy. Now, India's involvement includes supplying critical components such as cryolines, 4 kilometers of which were provided to operate at temperatures ranging from minus 269 degrees Celsius to minus 193 degrees Celsius. Right, let me go back to my guests joining us on this broadcast, Ambassador Ashraf, Ambassador Wadhwa, and Professor Kumar. Ambassador Ashraf, you referred to in your opening remarks about strategic autonomy, and I want to ask you to go at delve with some length on this issue, because it's central to both the Indian and French security and strategic policies. How salient is it for the, or how welcome is it for the betterment of the bilateral partnership?
I think, what I've seen is that there is enormous respect in France. Some might argue that we actually were inspired by France in pursuing a policy of strategic autonomy, but I think that's been in our DNA forever. But there's enormous respect in France for the way India navigates its way through this extremely complex and tumultuous international order, and that it does so with a sense of consistency, principle, transparency, and without trying to use one side to seek any geopolitical advantage against the other. And many in France tell me that, France as a country which was so deeply wedded to strategic autonomy also now needs to be in some senses inspired by the manner in which India is exercising its strategic autonomy in pursuit.
Ambassador Ashraf, apologies to interrupt you there. We're getting some latest visuals from Marseille of the two principals, President Emmanuel Macron of France and Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, visiting the Mazar War Cemetery in Marseille to pay homage and tributes to the fallen soldiers from India and around the world in the First and Second World Wars. These are the latest visuals coming to you from the Mazar War Cemetery in Marseille. Remember, it's day 3, the concluding day of the Indian leaders' visit to France, and the two leaders, President Macron and Prime Minister Modi, are now in the French port city of Marseille for a number of key engagements, including, as you can see on your screens right now, a visit to the Mazar War Cemetery in the city to honor the fallen soldiers in the First and Second World Wars. Prime Minister Modi and President Macron reached Marseille from Paris after co-chairing the AI Action Summit in Paris, where two key developments or outcomes from the summit were shared by Prime Minister Modi in his closing remarks there. He said that he welcomed the setting up of an AI foundation and also announced that India would be happy to host the next AI summit here in India in 2026. Meanwhile, coming back to the visuals on your screens right now, those of the two principals, Prime Minister Modi and President Macron, as the Mazar War Cemetery in Marseille in southern France to pay homage to the fallen Indian soldiers in the First and Second World Wars. Right, so if you're just tuning in, you're watching a special broadcast here on DD India. We are getting to you the latest updates from Marseille as part of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 3-day visit to France. It's the third and concluding day of his engagements in that country. And we are getting to you these latest visuals of the first engagement of Prime Minister Modi and his host, President Macron of France, at the Mazar War Cemetery in Marseille, where the two leaders paid homage to the fallen soldiers who took part in the First and Second World Wars. We'll stay on these visuals for some more time as we get you more updates from Marseille. Remember, a number of other engagements are planned through the day, including the inauguration by both leaders, President Macron and Prime Minister Modi, of an Indian consulate in the city of Marseille, and also a visit, a joint visit at that, to the ITER project in Kadash, which is the site of a nuclear fusion energy project of which India is a partner along with other countries in the EU and elsewhere as well. Right, just to recap the developments of the last few minutes, you're watching a special broadcast here on DD India, the continuing coverage of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 3-day visit to France. He is now in Marseille, the port city in France, where along with President Emmanuel Macron, he has visited the Mazar War Cemetery in the city to pay homage to the fallen soldiers in the First and Second World Wars. And just to get some more additional information by way of context for our viewers, now this is a war cemetery that is maintained by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. It's an opportunity for both leaders to pay tributes to the sacrifices by Indian soldiers during, as I said, the First and Second World Wars. The two leaders will also take this opportunity to jointly inaugurate the Consulate General of India in Marseille after this engagement. All right, while we stay on these visuals, if I can quickly go back to our guests on this broadcast. Ambassador Ashraf, apologies for cutting you short there. Before you finish making the point there, why don't you also throw some light on the cemetery itself and its significance for India-France relations?
Well, thank you. This, I've had the privilege of laying the wreath here on at least 3 years. This is one of the largest cemeteries as far as Indian soldiers are concerned. Let me just go back and tell you that 140,000 Indian soldiers participated in the First World War in France and in Belgium. And more than 9,000 of them made the supreme sacrifice on what is the territory of France today. And it forms an extraordinary bond between our two peoples, because their remains or their names are interred in 163 cemeteries across France, from the north to the south. And there is a wreath-laying ceremony that takes place in several of these very large cemeteries every year, where the mayors, local dignitaries, and the local population come. And they're reminded of the sacrifice that the Indian soldiers made in the First World War. And I think their blood is permanently interred in the soils of France, and that really forms that sense of mutual respect and in a sense of gratitude that continues to be felt by the people of France. After all, remember that so many years later, it was nearly over a century later, people in every city where there is a cemetery and a wreath-laying ceremony takes place turn out for that event. The mayor, the prefects are the local administrators, they turn out for the events. There is a full military ceremonial function around it. And I should add to you that in 2015, when Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi made his first visit to France in April 2015, he had then made the journey to the cemetery and the memorial in Neuve-Chapelle, somewhere near the France-Belgian border. And in that pouring rain of April, he had gone and paid homage to the Indian soldiers. And I think in many ways, that gesture of the Prime Minister had created and certainly reminded people of India also about the role that the Indian soldiers played in defense of liberty and pursuit of peace in the First War, in a distant land, in a cold weather. And their bravery has been, of course, and their courage, their valor, their bravery has been captured in many books and also in movies that have been made on their 4-year stay there. And I think many of those soldiers from the Punjab regiment, who are there in the memorial in Neuve-Chapelle in North, many of those soldiers had participated in the French National Day, the Bastille Day parade in 1916. And it is remarkable that in 2023, in the French National Day, on the same Champs-Élysées, a contingent from Punjab regiment participated in the parade. And you can see this arc of time, this arc of history, in which, due to the sacrifices made by Indian soldiers, the sense of solidarity now that the two countries feel in pursuit of peace and in their values. So this is a very important moment. We are so proud to see that President Macron has joined Prime Minister in laying the wreath at this cemetery, which is really there for the Indian soldiers. 1,003 actually is the precise number of those whose remains are interred over there. And once again, it reminds us in today's context the importance of countries like India and France defending peace and liberty and the values that they so deeply believe in. And this is again a moment that in a sense stands as a symbol of that.
Absolutely. And while we are talking on the visit to the cemetery, Ambassador Ashraf and my other guests, we're getting some more latest visuals of the two principals, the two leaders, paying a floral tribute at the cemetery, and also visuals of Prime Minister Modi signing the visitors' guest book as well. We'll get to that in a moment from now. There we go. The Prime Minister signing the visitors' book as well as the Mazar War Cemetery, and interacting also with the veterans there who have gathered for the occasion.
And we have got to thank also the Commonwealth War Graves Commission and the French government and the French military for the manner in which they maintain these cemeteries.
Indeed. As Ambassador Ashraf is pointing out, this is a war cemetery that's maintained by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. It's located in the port city of Marseille in southern France, where the two principals, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India and President Emmanuel Macron of France, are present to pay homage to the fallen Indian soldiers in the First and Second World Wars. We're getting you the visuals of the two leaders paying floral tributes at the cemetery, and the Prime Minister also signing the visitors' book on the occasion. Remember, it is day 3 of the Prime Minister's 3-day visit to France. It's the concluding day of the engagements in that country. They are now at the war cemetery in Marseille. Afterwards, they'll also be traveling together to inaugurate the Indian consulate in the city and also visit the nuclear fusion energy project site. Right, if you're just tuning in, you're watching a special broadcast here on DD India of the continuing coverage of India's Prime Minister's ongoing visit to France. We still have with us our guests, Ambassador Javed Ashraf, Ambassador Anil Vadva, and Professor Rajan Kumar, with us to walk you through the significance of the ongoing visit and also delve deeper into the intricacies of the India-France bilateral ties as well. If I can come to you now, Ambassador Vadva, while we are watching the visuals of the first engagement of the day for the two principals there in Marseille, talk to us a bit, if you will, about how Prime Minister Modi is one leader who invests a lot of time, energy and effort into establishing a personal rapport with world leaders, and the Modi and Macron relationship is a good example of that.
Yes, absolutely. And before I come to this question of yours, I'd like to add that
sure.
About the maintenance of the Commonwealth, cemeteries around the world, where the Commonwealth War Graves Commission definitely does a very good job and organizes these events quite regularly in order to commemorate, important dates and events around the world, especially in Europe. And as ambassador to Italy and to Poland, I myself have been to many of these ceremonies. They evoke very strong reactions from people, and there's a certain amount of poignancy which one can feel in the atmosphere. Certainly a big effort which goes into it. Coming to your question about Prime Minister Modi, it's a fact that ever since he has come to office, and he has been trying continuously to reach out to world leaders on a scale which is quite unprecedented. He brings with him a certain amount of energy, and at the same time, he ensures that countries which were not touched by India or Indian leaders in the past were all covered as far as possible. In fact, I remember that when I was covering San Marino from Italy, at that time he had deputed a special minister to also pay a visit to a country like San Marino, which has got very little to do with India because it's a small population and it has relationships with very few countries around the world. But that went a long way in terms of striking a chord in the people of San Marino. And after that, whenever I used to visit, they used to remember that that ministerial visit was undertaken at the behest of Prime Minister Modi. But on his own accord, I think around the world, he has been very successful in creating these bonds with the leadership of United States, Europe, other parts of the world, the Middle East, in Southeast Asia. And he personally makes an effort to attend important events, to be present there, and also takes a keen interest in what is going around, especially at world summits, where he's a prominent figure now. And India is now seen as also championing the cause of the global South, which is a very important development, a reputation that Prime Minister Modi has continued to build upon and make it stronger. In fact, in far-flung places like the Pacific, for instance, where he started the FIPIC organization.
Mm-hmm.
Even there, with the small island states,
Right.
there is a certain amount of outreach and an effort which is being made to reach out to the countries which were ignored in the past. So definitely a big effort has gone into it, and it continues, as we can see.
Indeed, Professor Kumar, I'll come to you in just a bit, but on the point of personal rapport among world leaders, Ambassador Ashraf, you've seen these two leaders at very close quarters. How important is their so-called or much acclaimed personal chemistry to fostering or boosting the relationship or diplomacy between the two countries?
I think it matters a lot. First of all, I'd like to say that, there is genuine mutual respect and affection between the two leaders. And it comes from both their personalities,
right,
their worldviews, their style of operations, but also the recognition that both have of the importance of this relationship. I mean, you can see Prime Minister, if he goes to Europe, he'll definitely make a stop there.
Right, Ambassador Ashraf, while we are talking about the chemistry between the two leaders, we're also getting you, just for your information and our viewers, of the two leaders now as the Indian consulate in Marseille, interacting with the Indian diaspora at the venue of the soon-to-be inaugurated consulate in Marseille. But do carry on, Ambassador Ashraf. Ambassador Ashraf, are you with us? Can you hear me? Ambassador Ashraf, we're getting these visuals of the two leaders now at the Indian consulate in Marseille. While you were talking about the chemistry between the two leaders, do share your, finish making a point on that, and also talk about a bit about the significance of the consulate again for the benefit of augmenting people-to-people ties between the two countries as well.
No, I think it's extremely important that we have a consulate there now. As you recall, as I said, that France was a country where mainland France
right.
Had absolutely nothing other than just the embassy in Paris. For a long time, there was this belief that everything that happens in France happens in Paris, and there's no need for a representation outside. We did have a consulate in the Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean, the French territory. But there's nothing in New Caledonia and the Pacific. And as I said, we've just started appointing an honorary consul in the Caribbean island territories of Martinique and Guadeloupe. But in Marseille, it was important not just to service the diaspora. It's a large country where the distance between Paris and Marseille is about 900 kilometers. South of France is an extremely important technological, economic, cultural hub of a region of France. When I was there, we often found there's so many activities taking place. Marseille, as I said, is the second largest city. It is a strategic port. It will be one of the world's largest landing points for submarine cables, which are literally the highways of the 21st century. It will be the main hydrogen terminal for southern Europe, and hydrogen is going to be the big thing. It is for France the terminal point for the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. And as your correspondent mentioned, France is taking this very seriously. They have appointed a special envoy, the first one for the IMEC corridor. They've also offered us, an Indian company, to take stakes in port of Marseille. You see Europe's largest naval base is close to Marseille in the city of Toulon. You have major defense industries, major aerospace industries, major digital technology companies, the startups. All of these are located in the vicinity of Marseille. So it was very important for us to be present there. It's, as I said, also in the larger framework. You see Marseille emerging as the connector between the Euro-Atlantic zone and the Indo-Pacific zone. And Mediterranean Sea, where Marseille is located, is already is in some sense emerging as a bit of a contested ocean. Russian ships are there, European, American ships are there, but the Chinese are also making their presence felt. So it was very important for us for economic, technological, strategic reasons and for security reasons to be present in the port city of Marseille. And as I also said, that it was an anomaly that we had no consulate in France. And it was it's part of Prime Minister's effort that we expand our footprint and that in 2023 July, during his visit to France as the guest of honor for the French National Day, that he made the announcement. And we're very pleased by the support of the Ministry of External Affairs and Government of India that we've been able to actually acquire an excellent property in one of the most well-located, best locations of Marseille to house the consulate. And I think it will do our interests and our visibility and our presence a lot of good to have a fully functional and operational consulate in Marseille. And it's really a proud moment that it's Prime Minister and President Macron who are jointly inaugurating it. And I should also point out that, the very fact that President Macron is taking so much time, he's come all the way to Marseille. By the way, it's one of his favorite cities. He's often in Marseille because he sees a great future for Marseille in terms of French interest. So he was very happy that we've chosen Marseille as the place to locate our consulate against the claims of cities like Nice and Lyon. And his presence today with the Prime Minister throughout this trip is a reflection of the deep bond the two leaders share, because of their shared worldview, because of their personalities, because of the mutual respect that they have for each other. I have seen the candor with which and the freedom with which they speak to each other about the most complex issues. And that's something that I have seen in India-France relations. The level of candor and respect. And we don't get into asking questions about why you do this, why you do that. And that is a sign of their respect for strategic autonomy. For example, in these 4 years, no one in France asked me, why are you buying oil from Russia, or why do you have relations with this country, or that why do you do these things? And that's a good thing, because they understand that we will do things that are in our interest and that in no way is going to compromise our interest with regard to our Western partners or with other countries. And I think it is this sort of respect and sensitivity that are important in human relationship, but are equally important in relations between countries. And they have always been very respectful. And this is a great sign, a visible, visual sign of the bond that the two leaders share, which in a sense is a reflection of the strategic partnership in itself.
Absolutely. Public diplomacy at its best. These pictures are a fitting tribute to the time-tested, trusted and mature partnership between India and France. Remember, India-France ties straddle a number of key areas, including but not limited to defense and security, civil nuclear cooperation, space. And now we are getting you the visuals again for the consulate, where Prime Minister Modi is greeting, along with President Macron, the Indian diaspora that's gathered there. Let's listen in.
इस वक्त मार्सेई में
All right, in news just coming in, as you can see in these visuals coming to you from Marseille in France, the two leaders, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India and President Emmanuel Macron of France, have just a moment ago inaugurated the Indian consulate in the port city of Marseille in France. President Macron accompanying Prime Minister Modi to the new Indian Consulate General in the city. and a large crowd gathering there at the consulate to witness history being made, a momentous occasion in India-France's time-tested partnership. One, as I was saying, that straddles a number of spheres of human activity, including defense and security, civil nuclear energy cooperation, space, technology, people-to-people ties, as well as the Indo-Pacific region. The two leaders at the Indian consulate in Marseille, where they have just inaugurated the new building and the consulate in this city. So if you're just tuning in, we're getting you the latest visuals from Marseille, where Indian Prime Minister Mr. Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron have just inaugurated the new Indian consulate in Marseille. Remember, it's the concluding day of the Indian leaders' visit to France, and the two leaders are in the city to take part in a number of other engagements, including they have just visited the war cemetery in Marseille, and they will also travel together next to the fusion nuclear energy project site as well. So there we have it, the two leaders interacting with the Indian diaspora who have gathered at the venue to celebrate the inauguration of the new Indian consulate in Marseille, France. Right, so just to recap the developments over the last several minutes here on this special broadcast, the two leaders of India and France, Prime Minister Modi and President Macron, have just inaugurated the Indian consulate in Marseille, in the French port city in the southern part of the country there. Now there are a number of Indian nationals, people of Indian origin as well, who live and work in the south of France, in a number of cities across the region, in Toulouse, in Nice, Marseille, and in Lyon. The consulate is expected to bring closer the services of that India provides to its Indian citizens and PIOs in general as well. So it's a momentous occasion in India-France ties, the opening of the new Indian consulate in Marseille on the third and concluding day of the Indian leaders' ongoing visit to France. Right, if you're just tuning in, we are watching the proceedings from Marseille, where the two leaders have visited and paid tributes at the war cemetery in the city and also inaugurated the consulate there. They will now travel together to the next engagement, which is a visit to the nuclear fusion energy site, the ITER project, the International Thermonuclear Project, of which India is a partner. Right, let me go back to my guests, Ambassador Javed Ashraf, Ambassador Anil Wadhwa, and Professor Kumar, who is with us. Professor Kumar, if I can come to you now, my apologies to you, I couldn't come to you before this, but looking at the significance of the developments in Marseille, the opening of the new consulate, the joint visit to the war cemetery, it bodes well for the relationship India-France in the days to come as well.
Place is, as Ambassador Ashraf very correctly pointed out, that place has strategic importance, in fact geostrategic importance, because as he said, that is the terminal point of IMEC, the proposed corridor which will connect India, Middle East and Europe. So if it happens, and if the ceasefire continues, it's likely to kind of restart again in sometime future. So from that perspective, important. From the data network perspective, this is important as it was pointed out. And you have the war cemetery, which again is important for India, for the new India, what you might say, because Indian history, the soldiers, our soldiers who died in the First World War or the Second World War, they're largely forgotten. So the fact that the Prime Minister is visiting that cemetery and laying wreath there, so that shows the importance that we attach to the history and the kind of role that India played, and which was often ignored by the West, but also by India to a large extent. So it reminds us the kind of important role that we played in the World War I. If I remember correctly, there were approximately 74,000 soldiers who died in that World War I who were Indians, and roughly 1.23 million people participated in World War I. But when if you see the films or most of the writings on World War I, they are talking about the fight between the Central Power and the Allied ones, but India's role is often forgotten. So we are trying to kind of revisit the history, and that from that perspective, his visit and in the cemetery in Marseille, that's very, very important. But also it kind of says about the growing Indian outreach, because we are not now. One of the things that has happened in this government with the Modi administration is that he has tried to outreach has expanded in terms of as Ambassador Wagwa was pointing out, that even in the places and in the countries which were not very prominent in historically to India, Prime Minister has made an effort to visit that country or send his ministers, important cabinet ministers there, and re-establish ties with the smallest of the country, either in Caribbean, in Africa, also in Europe. So that's number one. He has also tried to connect with the diaspora, and as you have shown in your program, that how he was connecting with the diaspora. That's an important aspect of the Prime Minister Modi's foreign policy, and the personal chemistry. Very interesting that he has very good personal chemistry with all kinds of leaders, be it President Putin, be it this Macron, or when he's going to United States today or tomorrow, so President Trump. So that is another new dimension that I see in India's foreign policy, the way Prime Minister Modi is trying to connect with a different set of people. And all three, as I said, they play a very important role in building up the trust that you have with the leaders, but also with the people. And these people, and the diaspora, they are our ambassadors in that country, and Indian diaspora is very well respected throughout the world. So from that perspective, Prime Minister Modi's visit to Marseille and its inauguration of the in laying the wreath to our soldiers, that assumes significance.
The latest updates from Marseille in France, where the Indian leader, Prime Minister Modi, has just inaugurated the new Indian consulate in the city along with President Emmanuel Macron of France. The two leaders jointly inaugurating the new Indian diplomatic mission in the city. It's the second such diplomatic mission of India in France after the embassy in Paris. We have with us our guests, Ambassador Javed Ashraf, Ambassador Anil Wadhwa and Professor Rajan Kumar, to walk you through the intricacies of the issue at hand here, including the relevance and the salience of India and France relationship for their ties as well as for the world at large. Professor Kumar, do finish making a point there before we cut to those visuals.
No, I was saying about the Prime Minister, some of the distinctive parts of Prime Minister's and this Modi administration's diplomacy, where I was saying that how he has tried to connect with the people, with the diaspora. That's number one. I was also saying that how he has built up a personal rapport, personal chemistry with most of the world leaders, be it President Putin, be it President Trump and Emmanuel Macron and other leaders as well. So that's the second important part of India's diplomacy. The third, that India has now started focusing not just on the great powers but also on the smaller powers. If you see the visits of Prime Minister Modi and also the visits of External Affairs Minister in the last few years, so he has visited almost all the countries, even the smaller nations, which are, say for instance, Caribbean nations, which are completely in the dark from Indian perspective. So he has visited there, many of the African countries, and the government has also tried to create an alternative narrative for India, because all these, through these methods, you try to create a narrative which somehow was missing in the previous administration. So from that perspective, this outreach program, the connecting with the people program, it plays a very important role in promoting India's diplomacy, promoting India's influence, and building up India's narrative. And India is taken very seriously by the Western countries, by France, as I said. France, from French perspective, India is extremely important as the most populous country, of course, but also because of the rising economy. The kind of policy that we pursued, despite Western pressure, we tried to maintain some kind of neutrality even in the Russia-Ukraine war. France for a very long time tried to pursue that policy, but because of France being a member of NATO, it couldn't do that. But the fact that India pursued that policy, that impacted many countries in the world, where the countries of the global south, they started pursuing that kind of policy. And that policy of strategic neutrality, kind of multi-alignment policy, what we call it, so that is respected in France. And France, one of the things about France is that France is the most important country in Europe today. Because I'm saying Britain is important, but Britain, again, most of the policies of Britain, if you see, it's a kind of policy, it ties up with the United States. So even on the issue of artificial intelligence, yesterday when the joint declaration was signed, UK refused to take an independent position, and it went with the United States, where it didn't sign the joint declaration. But France considers itself an important country. Actually, France is the most important country. It has very powerful economy, but it also has a powerful military and a member of Security Council in the United Nations. So because of that reason, France is extremely important for us. We have a very deep and trusted partnership today. If I can count some of the countries where we have built up a relationship at a very comprehensive level, so US, Russia, Japan, France, these are the countries which matter to India in terms of great powers. And from that perspective, this visit of Prime Minister Modi is extremely important, and it's also a way to connect, because the main focus was artificial intelligence, but also the strategic partnership. In that, he has tried to, France has tried to kind of bring in a country of the global south, and a country of global south which is respected, which is rising, and which is also a democracy. So there is a convergence of interest. Because both the countries realize that if you, because US is shrinking, and if you want to build up multilateral institutions, you cannot just remain dependent either on the United States or China. So we have to create an alternative. And India, because of its rising economy, because of its talent, the IT industry, etc. So India can play a very important role in the futuristic technology of artificial intelligence. And that was highlighted in Prime Minister's visit yesterday. So I see that it's an important milestone in India's diplomacy, and it's a way to connect to a powerful country in Europe. And we have very deep-seated relationship, very comprehensive at every level with France, right? Starting from the personal chemistry of Prime Minister Modi and Macron to the diasporic relationship at the bottom. So this relationship is very, very comprehensive, and that shows in the kind of the way the two leaders are kind of interacting with each other, the kind of handshakes, the kind of the hugging, etc., smiles. So that shows a kind of trust and the camaraderie that exists between the two leaders.
Absolutely. Let me pause here for a moment. I'll request a guest to stay on. I'll come back to you momentarily, Ambassador Ashraf, Ambassador Wadhwa, and you, Professor Kumar. Let me bring our viewers up to speed with what's happened in the last several minutes as we speak. Prime Minister Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron met and interacted with the members of the Indian diaspora in Marseille. The Prime Minister received a heartwarming welcome by the diaspora outside the newly inaugurated Indian consulate in the city. Now, the Indian consulate was jointly inaugurated by Prime Minister Modi and President Macron, and these are the visuals coming to you from the consulate, which, as I said, was inaugurated jointly by the two leaders a short while ago. And earlier in the day, Prime Minister Modi and President Macron paid tributes to the Indian soldiers who lost their lives during the First and Second World Wars. They visited the Mazar War Cemetery in Marseille. Now, this is a war cemetery that is maintained by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. All right, I'll request our guests, Ambassador Ashraf, Ambassador Wadhwa, Professor Kumar, to stay on. We'll come back to you momentarily, but time for a very short break. News and updates continue on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Prasar Bharati, in collaboration with IIT Delhi and Software Technology Parks of India, is organizing the DD Robocon 2025 this year as well. In this National Robotic Championship, engineering students will get ample opportunities to showcase their ingenuity and potential. The national selection for this championship will be held on the 12th and 13th of July, and the winning team will get an opportunity to participate in the International ABU Robocon Championship to be held in Mongolia in August this year. So, hurry up. The last date of registration is the 16th of February. For more information, log on to www.ddrobocon.iitd.ac.in.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Prasar Bharati, in collaboration with IIT Delhi and Software Technology Parks of India, is organizing the DD Robocon 2025 this year as well. In this National Robotic Championship, engineering students will get ample opportunities to showcase their ingenuity and potential. The national selection for this championship will be held on the 12th and 13th of July, and the winning team will get an opportunity to participate in the International ABU Robocon Championship to be held in Mongolia in August this year. So, hurry up. The last date of registration is the 16th of February. For more information, log on to www.ddrobocon.iitd.ac.in.
Clean energy is the future for sure. We are still not able to produce enough energy through renewable sources yet. But why is it so, and how can we change that?
we introduced solar-powered street lights, cutting consumption by 5%. Then I had the government build green homes fitted with solar panels, making us more energy independent.
The panels contain a lot of rare commodities, and you can save a lot of energy if you use recycled materials.
We run off hydropower or wind power, so the electricity we have is sustainable and renewable. So of course that's the most sustainable we can do.
When it transforms and translates into results,